Hi. This video is about the lynchings of black people in America, but to get to that, we have to take a quick detour. I promise it's going to tie in. A couple of days ago, I posted something very controversial here on YouTube and on Threads in an experiment. I don't typically rage bait because I'm dead ass serious, but this time I did say it in a way that I knew would piss some people off. Y'all hear that? The sound of Charlie Kirk not talking anymore? Incredible. That was on Threads. This variation of it was on YouTube. Quote, my favorite current genre of music is the sound of Charlie Kirk not talking anymore, end quote. Spicy, I know. I want to say up top that I accept people being angry about that. The point of this video isn't to further antagonize you, but I also don't regret saying any of that shit. Charlie Kirk was a racist and professional manipulator used by MAGA Republicans and Trump to further their corrosive agenda within the younger generations. The world is better without him in it, and I do reflect sometimes on how much I don't miss that motherfucker. If you don't want people celebrating your death, maybe don't do things on Earth that would lead to that outcome. Before we get into it, this video is not about Charlie Kirk or these posts. Stay tuned for the real discussion that casual viewers might not like. Not to mention the algorithm. YouTube took it pretty well. Most people are clearly on my side, since this is my channel, and a lot of people were dropping jokes, actually. I don't necessarily support that, but I also don't care enough about Kirk to condemn it either. There were a couple of comments from people that were upset, and that's it. Threads, on the other hand, lost their goddamn minds. Clearly, I got served up to the white side of Threads, and once they got started, they did not stop. There were memes about his death, which I deleted, but also just so much racism. This whole thing was a test. I really wanted to see what would happen if I limited my commentary to one person without bringing up race or political affiliation. It might be offensive to people who liked Kirk, but that's kind of all they had to work with. The comments, which you can see sliding by on the right, include several people taking shots at George Floyd, the Minneapolis man who was murdered by a white police officer in May of 2020. Just to jog y'all's memory, George was killed in the course of an arrest on suspicion of using a counterfeit $20 bill at a convenience store. $20 is what a black man's life costs. He was unarmed and died as a police officer's knee pressed on his neck. The comments you see here took a comment I made about one white supremacist and assumed several things with these George Floyd comments. That I'm insulting Kirk because I'm black, which is only partially true. There are plenty of white people joking about his death in these comments. I would say most of them are white. And that my blackness somehow means I'd break down crying about their George Floyd insults. See, it's a race war instantly with them. I find the comparison to be unequal, since one person died mid-sentence while spewing hate and bigotry towards black people and trans people simultaneously, while the other was lynched by police for allegedly forging a $20 bill. But their jabs aren't hurting my feelings. As a bonus, one of them insulted Renee Good, the Minnesota woman who was shot this year by ICE as she tried to drive away. So that makes two shots they've taken at innocent, unarmed people killed by law enforcement, as compared to one unarmed man who led an international hate movement. It also means they're trying to quote unquote own the libs by taking a shot at her murder. I obviously think her death was a massive injustice. Then there's this. I'm visibly black, so at least four of them saw fit to call me the N-word or some other racial epithet like grow, which is one I've never heard before. The N-word has been thrown at me more times than I can count since I'm a habitual people upsetter in my work exposing scammers. But still, not something I want to see typed out at me out of nowhere. Oh yeah, these two both called me, and those who look like me, monkeys. I walked y'all through all this chaotic psychobabble from these upstanding white citizens to make one point. White people, y'all have a problem to address. Charlie Kirk fans are not all MAGA. They aren't all Klan members. Many of them are regular ass white Americans who go to a 9 to 5 and doom scroll like you and me. Maybe it's your neighbor or a colleague or one of your buddies. I know white people like to call their friends buddies. This is the internet, so it's highly possible that every single comment I've shown you is coming from the extremists out there. But I don't think so. Even if that were true, it doesn't change my point. All it takes for white people to reveal their racism is the slightest provocation by someone they perceive to be a minority. MAGA white people are still white people. They aren't aliens. They didn't crawl out of the ground or start rocking red hats out of nowhere. Those MAGA adherents who consider themselves reasonable see shit like this happening right in front of them and still support Trump and his minions. Now, I told y'all this video wasn't about this Charlie Kirk post. It's already forgotten for the most part. Social media moves on. What I won't as easily dismiss is the fact that dozens of black people have been lynched across America, especially in Mississippi, within the last few years. To be specific, young black people are being hung at a rate that hasn't been seen since Jim Crow. Here's a secret y'all might not be aware of. Black people, as a general rule, don't hang themselves from trees. White people, y'all have a problem to address. We're going to introduce some specifics, courtesy of the Crimson Record. It lists all the MDLs, or modern day lynchings, across 7 states in the last 25 years, ending at 2025. On top of those, there's been at least 6 lynchings of black people in trees specifically. In 2026, between 2000 and 2025, the Julian database identified more than 70 modern-day lynchings across the 7-state region, with Mississippi reporting the highest number. Look at this chart. Really digest it. There's the documented MDLs on the left and the hate crimes or suspicious deaths on the right. Texas and Florida numbers include several trans victims. There's been a climbing rate here in Georgia, a surge in Louisiana since Hurricane Katrina, with another climb after the pandemic. And all of this is undercounting, since certain states have pathetic reporting standards. People in their 20s experienced the most MDLs at 37.5%. The oldest victim was 65. The youngest was 14. I want to be specific about how they were officially classified, since weirdos will be in the comments trying to correct me. So I'll say that the majority of cases examined in this study were officially classified as suicides, homicides without a proven discriminatory motive, or conventional hate crimes in a few cases. That being said, in this video we're operating from one premise. Black people don't hang themselves from fucking trees, in random homes or in weird remote locations. Denoris Nana Richardson, a 39-year-old loving father, son, husband, coach, and friend, was found hanging in an abandoned home in Alabama. Javion Malik McGee, a 21-year-old truck driver, was found next to a tree after being hung with a rope in Henderson, North Carolina. Although he was recorded purchasing rope from a Walmart, his family contends that this was equipment that he routinely used to tie objects down in his job. I believe them. Husband, father, and grandfather Earl D. Smith, 58, was found hanging from a tree in upstate Albany, New York, in June of last year. DeMartravion Trey Reed hung from a tree in the middle of campus at Delta State University. Football players found him. Torrance Torrey Medley hung from a tree on a fucking golf course in Brookfield, Wisconsin. Kyle Basinga hung from a tree in Cobb County, Georgia. 16-year-old Juliana Zeta hung near a black church. 39-year-old Cedric Tahuye and 19-year-old Tania Miller hung from trees in Harrisburg, North Carolina, and Miami public parks, respectively. Gerard Jackson, 28 years old, and written off as a suicide with no evidence of foul play, just like every other name I just listed. Tasia Fortune is one of the most recent modern-day lynchings we've received reporting of. 29 years old, found hanging in Mississippi. Black people do not hang themselves from trees. When asked about Fortune's state of mind the last time she saw her, Tasia's mother, Christy Spivey, said, "She was better than I had seen her in a long time. She was at peace." Asked if her daughter could have died by suicide, Spivey said, "She did not do this to herself. I know my daughter, and she did not do this to herself." Anticipating another response that might be in the comments about suicide ideation, some victims of suicide do report feeling at peace before committing the act because they've gone through the mental reckoning it takes to get to that point, they've processed the emotions, and they've developed an understanding with themselves that their problems are over So some of them do experience peace towards the end. That being said, I'm going to put more weight on a family member's perception of their well-being that knows them closely, as opposed to police who very hastily report these things and jump to conclusions. According to the reporting from the Crimson Record, across nearly every MDL case, lynchings, a predictable investigative pattern emerges, marked by haste, neglect, and procedural breakdowns. Premature conclusions, lack of physical autopsies, compromised crime scenes, shoddy investigations, and evasive reporting. In addition to breaking these cases down in a way that helps us zero in on the flaws in each state, the report delivers recommendations on policy, investigative protocol, and a hard strategic plan that includes every stakeholder involved, from police to policy. They also recommend strengthening the federal Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act because it's currently weak as hell. All that being said, and this is my opinion from here forth, none of that is going to work in an environment where white people hate us. The police have been quote unquote infiltrated by the KKK and neo-Nazi factions because catching runaway enslaved people is their literal origin. ICE and the armed forces are branches of an imperialist state with an incentive to eliminate large swaths of our population and keep us dependent on the state. And Christian nationalism has completely co-opted our government, as proven daily in the Trump administration. The reason I call out Christian nationalism here is because it's something that acts as a consistent underline in Americans' white supremacist societal structure. Christianity supports violence as long as it's committed under righteous pretexts. If a group of people are perceived as a threat to Christians, and in this context, Christians means white Americans, at least to them, this worldview allows Christian nationalists to justify weaponizing the police and ICE against those groups. And of course, this discussion isn't limited to those organized forces, since white supremacy is a group project. Regular ass civilians have to be coordinating these murders. Yes, some of them could theoretically be suicides, but I'm not buying that it's a significant percentage. I'm not being conspiratorial either, since I presented the data earlier in this video. White people used to treat lynchings like we currently treat movies on the lawn events at the local town center. The will to kill hasn't gone anywhere. It just went underground, like hazing in fraternities. Same deaths, just less publicity. It goes without saying that the whole reason I'm making this video is to add publicity, however minute, to an issue that hasn't stopped since this country was founded. A larger contingent of white Americans than you think is completely opposed to sharing this land with those who originally owned it, indigenous people, people they brought over to labor on it, black people, or people who don't fit within their Christo-fascist framework, queer people, especially minorities. I often get accused of being racist or hating white people, and I've always found it to be annoying and inaccurate. So this is a perfect opportunity to get real specific. I don't hate white people. I hate you. I hate your ignorance of what's happening right in front of you. I hate your defensiveness in the face of other people's suffering. I hate your complacency in the midst of a fascist government takeover. I hate your blindness as Palestinian, Congolese, and Sudanese people get massacred by United States political support and weapons. I hate your ancestors as a record label and as a motherfucking crew. You know who I'm talking to. And if it's somebody you know, fuck them especially. White liberals who watch my videos and want to help. Hi, I see you. Check your people and your privilege. Then challenge your racist ass friends to get their shit together. Wake the fuck up. We don't have more time. This shit is not normal. And it keeps happening. Light a fire under all these police departments' asses when they slack on these investigations. Put your white bodies at the front of these protests so the rest of us don't get shot. They'll hesitate to kill y'all. Get just as creative when it comes to defending the less privileged as your ancestors got when they wrote up all these fucked up laws that allowed them to use us like farm equipment in perpetuity, then refuse us reparations, then segregate us while starving us of resources from Jim Crow until right now. There's your playbook. I want to thank all the people on Threads and other social platforms that brought this phenomenon to my attention in the first place and shared resources like the Crimson Record for me to review. Special thanks to Rada Blank on Threads, who sent me a lot of reporting on individual lynchings of black people. Javion McGee's family wrote this brief poem about him in his obituary, which I've linked below. Our lives go on without you, but nothing is the same. We have to hide our heartache when someone speaks your name. Sad are the hearts that love you, silent are the tears that fall. Living without you is the hardest part of all. You did so many things for us. Your heart was so kind and true. And when we needed someone, we could always count on you. The special years will not return when we are all together. But with the love in our hearts, you walk with us forever. Thank you for watching. Y'all stay healthy.